What is going on, you guys? Welcome to my full card breakdown for UFC Fight Night Bautista versus Oliveira this weekend. Got some decent fights, definitely some good spots to bet on. And speaking of our bets, last week we were victims to one of the worst robberies in history. Yiza beats the absolute piss out of Cong and loses by majority decision.
Oh, no, you didn't. Wait a minute. No, you didn't. Hey, Jay! Hey! Jay! 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 Come back here! Jay! You disloyal, fool-ass, bitch-made punk. Jay! I need my money!
I thought it was clear as day a 29-27 victory for Yiza. Maybe a 29-28 if we were being incredibly generous. But for any human on earth to score that third round for Offley when Yiza almost doubled his strikes and got 2 takedowns is complete horseshit. Part of me would rather he had actually just lost the fight. To go from making hundreds of dollars to only profiting 13 because the judges have an extra chromosome, not even because you made a bad call, is beyond infuriating. It is what it is. That's the one issue with betting on the UFC, but whatever. I watched 2 dominant performances from both of my fighters, but the money didn't hit my account, so I guess I have to call it a loss. The only bright side is at least I know that my reads were right. Only thing we can do now is move on from it, but enough yapping, let's get into these fights. First fight of the night, we got Wang versus Eduarda Moira. I like Wang in this matchup. She joined the UFC with a ton of hype because she's a former professional kickboxer and actually has a win over Valentina in 2015. She was only 23 at the time too, which is wild. Then she came in and knocked out Victoria Leonardo in a minute, and the hype for her went through the roof. Got clipped the next fight against Fernandez, so the hype kind of died down after that. But me personally, I still have a lot of faith in her. Her movement and footwork are just a thing of beauty. Everything is so incredibly calculated. It's like years of fight experience mixed with crazy high fight IQ. In her last fight, she went in there and immediately destroyed the leg of Ariana Lipski with calf kicks. And then after that, it was like fighting a wounded animal. And I love how she incorporates her calf kicks within her combinations, rather than just throwing it on its own like most fighters. It's clear Eduarda will have the advantage if it goes to the ground, but I don't think she's going to be able to get it there. She stands very heavy on her lead leg. I can only imagine Wang is going to take advantage of that immediately. And on the feet, she's going to be too slow and telegraphed for someone as fast and clean as Cong. She does have some good takedowns and really good control, which does worry me, but I think the calf kicks will limit her movement, and I think she's going to have a really hard time closing range with the counter-striking of Cong. And she's shown some problems with her gas tank in the past. Slowed down a ton in her last fight, even lost the 3rd round, and that was against Lauren Murphy in her retirement fight. So not exactly the best look when you're going up against your most dangerous opponent to date. So give me Wang to win this fight, either by knockout or decision. Next fight, we got Daniil Donchenko versus Alex Morono. Alex Morono is one of the most boring guys to watch, in my opinion. All he does is just bounce around the cage, throwing those stupid kicks and that trash boxing that has no power at all. Whenever I think of him, all I remember is the fight he had with Nico Price at UFC 302, where for some reason, it was like the 2nd fight on the main card. I have no clue what the UFC was thinking, but it was almost embarrassing watching it live. It felt like 2 old dudes sparring for like some charity boxing event. You knew there was 0 chance of a finishing happening, and it completely killed the momentum of the card. Even just watching it on TV, it was so blatantly obvious everyone used that fight as a bathroom break. You could literally hear the crowd talking to each other, like shuffling by each other so they could go pee or go get a beer. I mean, this has got to be his retirement fight, especially with who they're matching him up with. I can't remember who I heard say this, but they said Morono comes from a generation of fighter where all it took was hard work and toughness to get you in the UFC. Like, he used to be super overweight in high school and was a professional video game player. The only reason he got into jiu-jitsu was to get into better shape, and then he ended up working his way up to the UFC. So not exactly your typical path with a martial arts background. And boy, can you tell. Because I watch him fight and I think to myself, how the hell was the sport this bad not that long ago? The way he throws punches, how he pulls back with his chin in the air, nothing lands with any kind of power. It looks like they pulled someone off the street and just threw him in there last minute. And almost a decade later now, you have guys like Donchenko making his debut who have better boxing than anything Morono's faced in a 22-fight stint with the UFC. This fight honestly has the potential to look like when he fought Chaos Williams, because I think Donchenko is a legit prospect, and I think Morono is borderline an embarrassment to the sport. And Donchenko fought very tough competition on the regional scene, guys that looked better than Moreno, so this is by no means going to be his toughest matchup. In this one fight he was fighting this guy whose last name was Zanabek Ulu. You know a guy with that as his last name can fuck you up. Just one of those Kyrgyzstani brick shithouses. You know those dudes with heads built out of granite that just don't feel pain? I don't even know how I found this fight on YouTube. The title of it was in Russian, but the elbows Donchenko was landing on this man were insane. And if you hit my guy Alex Morono with one of those, I don't know if he's going to wake back up. So I'm more worried about his safety in this one than anything else. But he's one of the last remaining guys in the roster that's from that generation of UFC fighter where you can't automatically say he's fought tougher competition just because he's in the UFC. At this point in the sport, the guys Donchenko faced on the regional scene were more difficult than almost all of Moreno's wins. And I feel like the UFC knows this, and it's probably also Dana still out for blood over him ruining that main card of 302. And this is just them giving him his walking papers. So give me Donchenko to win this fight by their first or second round knockout. Next fight on the card, we got Julius Walker versus Dustin Jacoby. This fight should be nothing but one-way traffic for however long it lasts. Julius Walker is up there with Torres Finney as the worst UFC signing of all time. During a time in the sport when it's more important than ever to be well-rounded, we still have guys like Walker that are barely even one-trick ponies, because I really don't know if I've ever seen striking that's this bad before. I mean, he doesn't even know how to stand. His hips are completely square to his opponent, throwing hooks from a mile away, horrible cardio, serves his chin up on a silver platter. To be this slow and telegraphed against anyone in the UFC is a major problem. Never mind against a former glory kickboxer. Because if it stays on the feet, Dustin Jacoby's striking is going to be so many levels above Walker's, it's not even going to look like a fair fight. He's got great footwork and movement, high output, got a beautiful jab, especially with how he uses it to stick and move. I think Jacoby is going to do what he always does, stay light on his feet and use that footwork to just dance around the cage and piece up Walker. The way he just plots forward, eating everything thrown his way, couldn't be a worse style against a guy like Jacoby. The biggest worry with Jacoby is his chin, and Julius Walker couldn't even hurt Rafael Sequeira with the best punch we've seen from him. And Rafael was known as being one of the chinniest guys in the division. He was actually landing more and with better shots than him. He practically finished him in the third round, but he was just as gassed and just couldn't stop the takedowns. And I get Walker is still very young. He's at that age and point in his career where he's probably improving drastically during camps. But even if he's able to get takedowns, it doesn't guarantee that he wins the fight. He doesn't have this crazy jiu-jitsu or nasty ground and pound. He's just got good control. But if you can stuff his takedowns, you're pretty much guaranteed to win, plain and simple. He's that bad in the feet. And if Jacoby's takedowns hold up early, I don't see how Walker even has a minute of success. So give me Dustin Jacoby to win this fight, probably by knockout. Next fight of the night, we got Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. I like Farid in this fight. He's definitely the better of the two bobblehead brothers, but he basically beats guys using only his footwork and speed, which makes betting on him a little bit scary because he's not leaving much meat on the bone. When you watch him fight, even though it's a technical masterclass, it feels underwhelming in a way, because any sort of big moment from his opponent could easily swing the round. But he's just so quick and hard to hit, it never happens. He's got to have some of the best footwork in the sport. Everything about his movement is perfect. And he's so quick at getting out of range, he makes it look effortless the way he dodges anything you throw. I can't even imagine how aggravating it must be to fight him. And Matsumoto has some good takedowns early on, but they use too much energy. He slows down a lot pretty quickly, and once he gets tired, those takedowns get sloppy. And on the feet, he's always going to be a step behind the timing and speed of Farid. He gets hit way too much to be fighting a guy that lands at a 60% clip. And it's not because he doesn't have head movement that's causing him to get hit so much. It's his reaction time. You can see him trying to move his head, but his reactions just aren't quick enough. And I feel like that's even worse because I don't think that's something that you can teach. I'd rather it be from him not moving his head because there's the potential that he could learn that. And Farid's got some really good takedowns, great timing on them. I love how he'll grab a kick and immediately turn into a takedown. It seems like he just has the advantage anywhere the fight goes. So give me him to win this fight by decision. Next fight of the night, we got Michal Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. It's pretty clear that Marc-Andre's prime is behind him. He looks like he should have good defense because of how he keeps his chin tucked and his hands are where they're supposed to be. But he eats absolutely everything, absorbs over 5.5 strikes a minute. Super easy to split his guard. The way he ducks his head sometimes leaves him wide open to counters. And unfortunately, his chin seems to be gone because of it. He had a brutal knockout against Stosfus and Pfeiffer, almost got knocked out after smashing Char's nose in his last fight. Got a win over Bruno Silva in between those, but that's just because Bruno Silva is 10 times more washed than he is. And he's going in there against a guy that loves to brawl, except 5 years younger and actively in his prime. And even though it's only been 2 fights since he started training with the Fighting Nerds, the improvements in his striking and cage control are more than noticeable. You can really see how comfortable he's become on the feet. Everything now is tight and technically sound. You're not seeing any more of that looping nonsense like he did against Chitty. I really like Michal in this fight. Two brawlers going head to head, except he's younger, more durable, and a better striker. So give me Michal to win this fight by knockout, probably before the second round. Next fight of the night, we got Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. I was shocked these odds weren't wider when I saw them. I understand that we all want Kuniev to win. I think Almeida is a cancer to the sport just as much as the rest of us do. And he does have some good striking, but it doesn't really matter how much better his striking is, because you're going to be a better striker than Almeida regardless of how good or bad you are. Your striking means nothing when you're fighting a guy that doesn't even wait a few seconds before shooting a takedown. And just because you can defend takedowns from Curtis Blades means nothing when it comes to this fight. And his takedowns got so sloppy very quickly. And then after a round, he just stopped shooting them entirely. Almeida is far better of a wrestler and in way better shape. I don't think people realize how good Volkov's defensive grappling and submission defense are, and he couldn't keep it on the feet for more than a few seconds. Even if Kuniev is able to survive the ground, maybe he somehow gets back to his feet in the later rounds. You have to think about how tired he's going to be. His striking won't work against Almeida with how heavy of a base he has when he throws punches, the way he moves forward too much when closing range. He's not light on his feet enough to avoid the takedowns. And the way you defend takedowns against Blades and Almeida are completely different. You can get to the fence and work your way back up from a double leg from Curtis Blades. But Almeida's takedowns are too good, and he's going to be able to take the back of Kuniev far too easily. So give me Almeida to win this fight, either by submission or decision. I still haven't decided yet if I'm going to bet on it. I swore to myself I never would again after I had the over 1.5 in his fight against Blades, but that submission prop at plus 200 is whispering my ear like Voldemort, so we'll see if I end up playing it in the best bets video on Friday. I still haven't decided yet. Next fight, we got Kyoji Horiguchi versus Amir Albazi. I like Kyoji in this fight. Seeing him come in and beat the brakes off Tagir was wild to watch. Never seen someone look that elite who just wasn't signed to the UFC for so many years. And Albazi is definitely harder competition than Tagir, but I've never really been too high on him either. He's super low output. Against Morono, he landed only 9 strikes in the first 2 rounds, and his past 2 fights have been 5 rounds. Definitely not good to be a slow starter going to your first 3-round fight in a few years. And now up against Kyoji, I just don't see where he's going to gain the lead in this fight, because Kyoji struggled with his wrestling in the past, and then changed gyms to American Top Team, made that his #1 focus, and now we're finally able to see that training put into action. And having that addition to his game makes him such an elite fighter because his stand-up was already so high level. Just crazy hand speed, perfect timing with both his hands and his takedowns. So hard to hit with how he moves around the cage. And because he's so short, you wouldn't think he'd have a crazy reach. Because of his speed and the in and out movement, he's able to hit you from so much farther of a distance compared to a normal boxer. And Albazi has had some very serious injuries these past couple of years. Didn't fight for 2 years after the Kai Kara France fight because he got both heart surgery and neck surgery. He had no idea what was wrong with his body, but they were measuring his heart rate at 230 beats per minute, which is borderline cardiac arrest. And then after that surgery, I believe he was training for a fight against Tyra, and all of a sudden he wasn't able to feel anything from his neck down to his arm. So he needed emergency surgery on that. The doctor even told him he was 1 punch away from being paralyzed. So this isn't just like tearing a muscle or nursing a sprained ankle. These are extreme injuries that are going to put you out of the gym for months. If the doctor is telling you that you almost died and then were almost paralyzed back to back, I can only imagine there were some large gaps of time where you weren't training at all. The one thing that does worry me in this fight is the power of Albazi. We've seen Kyoji get knocked out before. He tends to get wobbled a lot in his fights. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Kyoji is too fast and elusive on the feet, but it does feel like knocking him out is going to be the way that somebody beats him one day. But regardless, give me Kyoji to win this fight, probably by decision. And then we got the main event, Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira is an interesting guy to break down because we're rating fighters based on just technique. He's getting like a -15. I mean, this guy does everything the way you're not supposed to do it. Hands are always by his side, loading up way too much into punches, terrible cardio management. And I don't know what word you would use that like supersedes the word telegraphed, but there's like being telegraphed, and then there's Stevie Wonder could easily see it coming. Whatever you would use to say that, that's how I describe his striking. And not just any 5-round fight, but against a guy that's known for having crazy cardio. Because with how Oliveira's gas tank has looked recently, if this leaves the second round, it's Bautista's fight to lose. At that point, Oliveira is not going to have the power or speed to catch him clean enough to finish him. But the problem is Bautista isn't a guy I've been super high on in the past either. He got gifted one of the worst robberies in history against Jose Aldo, beat up Patchy Mix, but I knew Patchy was trash long before that fight happened, and then lost to Umar in a fight that wasn't nearly as competitive as people hype it up to be. And on paper, the obvious pick would be Bautista. 5 rounds favors him drastically. Much more experience, looked like he's been improving rather than declining, but I watch him fight and there do seem to be moments where it looks like he could get clipped by Oliveira. And it's tough to predict how this is going to play out because their styles don't naturally mesh well together. There's a lot of different ways this fight could play out, so it's hard to be confident in a side or a method of victory. But I'm going to have to side with the cardio of Bautista. I think he's going to have a smarter game plan than Oliveira. If I had to guess, I'd say he just moves around the cage a lot in the first round, let Oliveira chase him with the hopes he gasses out. So give me Bautista to win this fight, either by late TKO or a decision. And that's going to do it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. The parlay lock of the week is Farid, Basharat, and Michal inside the distance. Stay tuned for the best bets video. That will be out on Friday. Got some really good bets in there that I like a lot. But if you guys have any comments or suggestions, please leave them down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I will catch you guys in the next video.